Howdy ho, neighbors! Welcome back to another riveting Murdoch Mysteries episode review. So, listen, if you've been watching these reviews, you know that Murdoch Mysteries loves guest appearances. Essentially, every historical figure of the time period somehow finds their way to Toronto. Henry Ford, Buffalo Bill, Annie Oakley, and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle are just a few examples, and it adds a real charm to the show and storytelling possibilities. Today we are looking at one such episode, Invention Convention, in Season 5. Which famous historical figure are we treated to this time? Well, stay tuned and find out, suckers! The episode begins with Murdoch at a convention, an Invention Convention. He spends time looking around at the various exhibits in search of a man who sent for him, a fella named Carl Schreier. Suddenly, he hears a familiar voice.
Has your wife been unfaithful? Find out with the Truthizer!
It's everyone's favorite Murdoch Mysteries character, George Crabtree, and he's peddling Murdoch's inventions behind his back.
Sir, do you believe your wife here to be too fat?
I'm not gonna touch that one.
I'm here to meet Carl Schreier. He left a message at the station to meet here.
George lets on that he thinks Murdoch's Truthizer has a real shot at winning the Eaton Prize. However, Murdoch is there on business, and George helps him find Mr. Schreier. Schreier, the inventor of the suction machine, Giggity, presents Murdoch with an ominous letter he received to not accept the Eaton Prize for his invention.
I found it on my table this morning. I believe it to be the work of one of my jealous competitors. My invention is clearly going to win the Eaton Prize.
Seems like awful close timing for the detective, as seconds later, the winner is announced.
This year, the award goes to the suction cleaner.
That's me.
This poor kid here is bored out of his mind. I feel you, dude. Mr. Schreier accepts his award, ignoring the warning in the letter.
Did you hear that? That was a dog whistle. Human ears are not capable of detecting such a pitch. But that doesn't mean the sound isn't there. Ladies and gentlemen, I have long felt like the sound of that whistle.
But a few moments later, Mr. Schreier is struck down in front of everyone. Murdoch and George leap into action, and the episode truly begins. The inspector and Murdoch discuss what happened, uncertain how Mr. Schreier could have been shot. At the same time, the inspector makes mention of a sore tooth, which will serve as the B story for the episode. Dr. Grace gives her preliminary report. Schreier was shot in the head from above, but the caliber must have been small given there is no exit wound. She also makes a passing mention that his eyes are jaundiced or yellowed. Alright, no more teasing. Murdoch then meets our historical figure buddy for the episode.
Alexander Graham Bell.
Yes. Detective Murdoch, I presume?
And it's none other than Alexander Graham Bell, who does actually appear in 5 episodes of Murdoch Mysteries. I'm pretty sure that qualifies him as a recurring character, and you know the rule, if it's a recurring Murdoch Mysteries character, then they've also appeared in Stargate. So yes, Bell here is portrayed by John Tench, whom, if you did not know, played Lazan in Stargate SG-1 in the episode Talion. You know, Lazan. He was the one that gets on Teal'c's bad side. Twice.
Don't expect me to shed a tear for you and your kind.
I said twice.
Why should I tell you anything knowing death is my reward?
That may sound sensible for the moment, but believe me, in time, you will change your mind.
Oh! Bell tells the detective that Schreier was unpopular amongst the other inventors, leading us to meet the various inventors and their inventions. First up is Mr. Nellis, the inventor of the spinny table thing, like a Lazy Susan for the tabletop. Next is Mr. Harding and his analytical machine, who admits to getting into a sissy slap fight with Mr. Schreier after he messed with some of his gears. It's funny, because Jonathan Young, who portrays Harding, also regularly portrayed another inventor, Nikola Tesla, in the TV show Sanctuary, and even had a bit part in Stargate Atlantis as Dr. Parrish.
Not to worry, Major.
You get a role in Stargate. You get a role in Stargate. Everyone gets a role in Stargate. Next up is Mr. Braxton and his automatic ironing board. He offers nothing useful and just passes the detectives off to the next inventor, Mr. O'Brien. He explains that all the inventors communicate using iMail, a fancy new fangled way of sending messages at an instant invented by the deaf woman Myrtle Raylan. Murdoch enlists Belle, whose wife and mother are deaf, to help him question her.
I believe that this message was printed using one of your machines. Who has these machines?
Here, Miss Raylan clarifies that all the inventors at the convention received one of her machines to communicate, except Schreier, and she says she didn't like him.
She disliked him. Oh, she detested him.
After the creeper made some unwanted solicitations to her, and made fun of her machine, calling it nothing more than a copy of Edison's stock ticker.
Stock ticker! It was good, Myrtle. You should speak more.
Lastly, Murdoch learns that each machine keeps memory of its last 20 or so messages, making it possible to find out which machine printed the threatening letter which began the whole investigation. Back with Dr. Grace, she confirms that indeed, Schreier was shot from above, and presents Murdoch with the bullet that killed him, except it's actually a ball bearing. Murdoch calls in the inventor of the spinny doodad, Mr. Nellis, who uses such bearings in his invention. Murdoch is disarmed by a simple question, however.
Why would someone use a ball bearing when a regular bullet would do?
And we are back to square one. Alright, we might get in trouble here. Gotta play it cool. Murdoch fills in the inspector about how the case is progressing, but the inspector seems to be fiddling around with some, Shawn Michael sugar. You know, Rick James Remedy, Johnny Depp Dust, Bolivian baking soda.
Sir, is that cocaine?
Murdoch, bro, not cool. Moving on, the inspector is using it as pain relief, and Murdoch is a little bit worried. Murdoch quickly flees the scene when the inspector's wife enters the station house.
I'll speak to you later, sir.
She demands to know why the inspector missed his dentist appointment. And after he makes a flimsy excuse, she warns him that he now has a new appointment after work. George then approaches the detective with the results from all the various email machines. He regrets to inform the detective that the threatening letter came from the machine belonging to none other than Alexander Graham Bell. Bell argues that anyone could have accessed the machine and it wasn't him. And with a very sly smile, he informs the detective that during the murder, he was in fact recording using his audio machine.
Would you like to hear it?
Bell tells the detective that was why Schreier blew his dog whistle before giving his speech, for he wanted to test his recorder's ability to capture different pitches. When Murdoch asks why he didn't do it in a more controlled manner, Bell informs him that he lost his own whistle and had to agree to Schreier's terms for the experiment.
You think he stole it?
You're the detective,
I find it hard to believe that someone could be that petty.
No matter what he did, people didn't like him. Rejection can make a man bitter, which in turn makes him even more disliked.
A vicious circle.
Rejection can make a man bitter, making him more bitter, and therefore more disliked. Damn, Bell, that hits hard. They explore the results of the recording and note there was a high-frequency sound that wasn't the whistle. Bell hypothesizes the ball bearing must have hit something metallic, and Murdoch has an epiphany that it must have been the sound of ricochet. Taking a break, we head towards the dentist office, where the inspector is suddenly more agreeable to treatment. Until, of course, Henry Higgins interrupts with an emergency.
My apologies for interrupting. It's Detective Murdoch, sir. He needs you right away.
Bloody hell. Can't this wait?
He was quite insistent, sir.
Sorry, Doc. We'll have to do this another time. Margaret, schedule another appointment.
Ah, Inspector, you tricky dicky. Can't imagine this will backfire on you. George heads to Murdoch's office in the next scene and sees he has taken down one of the large signs from the convention. It had the proper height and angle for the shooting. They open the box and inside are switches and gizmos. Murdoch pokes and prods, leading to the thing activating. And we have our murder weapon. After playing around with the machine, Murdoch reports to the inspector that there are several distinct technologies at play, and he theorizes that multiple people had a hand in creating the murder weapon, and he discerns that all 5 inventor suspects could have collaborated together to make it happen. Oh, I get it. It's like the murder on the Orient Express, collective justice. Murdoch confronts all the inventors one by one, but all of them stand firm that they had no part in the device. Most of them also admit such a device is beyond their skills to make.
Could you have built this device yourself?
No.
Perhaps if I applied myself?
No. Of course I could have. I didn't. But I could have.
Murdoch goes back to the inspector, who is faded. Uh-oh. The inspector has decided to try some new pain relief medicine. Buffalo Soldier.
Heroin.
What? Oh my god, there goes the PG rating. My YouTube career in shambles already. Golden brown, texture like sun. In the next scene, George has deciphered all the codes and the various messages sent from the iMail machines, except one, leaving Murdoch to have to try and solve it on his own. I guess they're pressed for runtime in this episode because immediately in the next scene, Murdoch has it solved.
George, I've cracked the code. Have a look. Arrest them. Arrest them all.
Burn them all.
The truthizer is brought back out, and all the suspects are questioned using it. Unfortunately for Murdoch, they all just geek out about it, and he gets no useful results, and ultimately cannot prove they're lying. George, always the unsung hero, points out to the detective that maybe it has something to do with the whistle Mr. Schreier blew before his speech.
But he blew his dog whistle.
Murdoch blows the whistle, and sure enough, the device activates. With some dramatic music thumping around, Murdoch tells George,
George, arrest Alexander Graham Bell.
Oof. Well, George sets off to arrest Bell in the next scene, but instead comes across Henry Higgins playing foil to Mrs. Brackenreed.
Avoiding the dentist, is he? Higgins, Detective Murdoch has asked that you arrest Alexander Graham Bell at his hotel.
I can't.
Well, I'll take care of your duties here.
This leads to a funny exchange moments later.
Sir,
Crabtree.
just wanted to update you on the status of the case.
Oh, well, I'd better come.
That's not necessary, sir, but you should know that we printed the emails.
Oh, well, I should take a look.
Again, that's not necessary, sir. The only damning one came from Alexander Graham Bell's machine.
Oh, well, we'd better arrest him.
And that's what we're doing, sir. I've sent Higgins.
Higgins? Higgins?
He seemed the right man for the job, sir.
Oh boy, George. I hope you haven't flown too close to the sun with this one. Rounding out the episode, we have Bell being interrogated by Murdoch, who doesn't mince words. He accuses him of injecting himself into his investigation and creating the sound switch that activated the weapon. Bell is backed into a corner until Murdoch makes a false assumption.
Then how do you explain the fact that the device was triggered by a whistle you asked Carl Schreier to blow?
Detective, I didn't ask Carl to blow the whistle. He suggested it as part of his speech.
Why would he do that? Unless...
Murdoch goes back to Dr. Grace, who is looking fine as always, and she tells the detective that Schreier was very sick prior to his death.
He had a month or two at most. He would have been in quite some pain.
Murdoch, hat in hand, realizes he's been following dead leads since the very beginning of the investigation. As it turns out, Mr. Schreier invented the machine himself, using the technology of all his competitors. He knew he was soon to die from his illness, and wanted to create his magnum opus so that everyone would recognize his genius. And even though they were all nearly implicated and set up in his death, the group of rivals revel in the brilliance of their dead colleague, giving Schreier the one thing he always wanted.
Well, he was that. A genius. Which one of us could have made this?
Well, I could have.
The episode finishes with the inspector confronting George.
Worst pain I've ever experienced.
I'm sorry to hear that, sir. How does your tooth feel now?
Better. I suppose I have you to thank for that.
Oh, sir, no thanks necessary.
You've got guts, Crabtree. Not much in the way of brains, but you do have guts.
So, there you have it, folks. A murder mystery fueled by ball bearings, dog whistles, and enough drugs to cop a charge. If you've stuck with me this long, you deserve an Eaton prize yourself. Until next time, stay curious, stay clever, and try to invent something in the comments section. Shit, I don't know.
You get a roll, I get a roll.